Hello, my name is Bobby Jones. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited about this session. Today, we're going to talk about your GPS to creating with purpose. I know many of you are hungry to create in ways that have meaning and impact. And today I will show you how to get started on that journey. But first, let me share a story of my own journey that led me here today. About 10 years ago, I was at a crossroads in my life and my career. By all the traditional measures of success, I was at the top of my game. I won awards, we were doing great work, we were making lots of money. I was in the marketing and creative field, working with amazing clients and traveling around the world. But there was something inside of me that was unfulfilled, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. Around the same time, I became a father. I had a little boy by the name of Miles. And for any of you who have children in your lives, particularly young children, you know that there's a point in which you look at them and you start to imagine what they're thinking, start to imagine what they may be saying to themselves and what they may be saying to you in conversations you may have down the line. And I was looking at my son one day, I started to wonder, what would he do when I would begin to pack up and leave for work, or tell him that I had to go on a business trip or I had to leave for a while? Would he ask me, where was I going and why was it important? And I started to play this question out in this conversation in my head. And the more I played it out, I started to realize I didn't know if I had a really good answer. I didn't know if the answer that I gave was really communicating that the work I was doing really mattered and the work that I was doing really was meaningful. And so as I started to play this conversation out of my head, it became clear to me that I wanted to do something that really mattered. I wanted to do something that was really meaningful, that's really purposeful, that's really impactful, and something that if I was going to leave my family, that I felt as though I was leaving for something that really was going to make an impact in the world. And so as I got to this point in my career, I started to realize that although I knew I wanted to do work that mattered and I wanted to do work that had meaning and purpose, I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do or how or where to get started. So I was at this pivotal point in my life where I was seeking purpose in the things that I was creating in my work, but I needed somewhere to get started. I need someone to help me along my journey. And so I reached out to a good friend of mine by the name of True Pettigrew. And I told him that I was at a point in my life where I wanted to start my journey to understanding my own sense of purpose in my work in my life, and I needed help. And he told me that he would help me along this journey. And as we got started on this journey, he asked me three big questions. The first question he asked me is, what are your gifts? What do you see as your superpowers? The second question he asked is, what are your passions? What are the things you care about most? And the third question he asked is, how can you be of service? And so I started on this journey to thinking about what these answers were to these questions. And as I was going through the process of doing it, it took me weeks to really think about what my gifts were, what my passions were, and how I could be of service. And I really struggled with sort of articulating what ultimately my purpose was going to be. And while I was really trying to figure out what this was, there was a story that I remembered from a good friend of mine named Eric Dawson. And the story came to me and it really helped clarify what my purpose would be. The story that Eric told me was the story of the two wolves. The story goes, a grandfather is talking to his grandson. And the grandfather says to his grandson, he said, I have these two wolves inside of me. I have one wolf that is angry and vengeful and hateful and violent. And he said, I have this other wolf inside me that is loving and that is kind and that is generous and that is compassionate and that's giving. And he said, these two wolves are constantly at war inside of me. And the grandson looked at his grandfather, he was a little confused, and he said, well, if these two wolves are inside of you and they're constantly battling, which wolf wins? And the grandfather said to his grandson, "The wolf that wins is the one that I choose to feed." And it was in that moment of replaying that story in my head that I realized what I wanted to do. I wanted to use my creativity, I wanted to use my talents to feed the good in myself and feed the good in the world. I wanted to create things that fed the good wolf in the people around me and helped inspire them to feed the good in the world beyond. And the first thing that I created and started to create based on that sense of purpose of feeding the good in the world was this book, Good is the New Cool, Market Like You Give a Damn. It's a book that we co-wrote in 2016 that championed purpose-driven brands and marketing. And this is a book that we wrote really for all the other people in our industry, all the other creators in our field who wanted to do work and to create and market and do work that mattered, but didn't know how. And we released this book and it became a bestseller. It took off around the country and it took off around the world. And it was so many people that were around the world who were hungry to find work that really had meaning and purpose to it and really inspired them to create in ways that brought them fulfillment and brought them a sense of accomplishments and a real sense of commitment to being a force for good. And as we continue to travel, all of these people began to form a community. And so Good is the New Cool evolved from this book into this global community that connects and serves a global movement of world-changing entrepreneurs, creators, and innovators using business and culture as forces for good. This work also inspired us to help companies and help the people inside of companies to figure out how their work can be a force for good. And so we created this consultancy, Conspiracy of Love, which goes and helps all of these amazing brands and the people that work within them to figure out how to be forces for good. And the reason why this work is so fulfilling is because inside of all of these companies are people just like you and I who go to work every day and are increasingly feeling a call to use the power of their brands and their businesses to make a positive impact in the world. And what I've learned is that this desire to be a force for good is deep and is widespread. According to a recent study by Gallup, they asked workers around the world, how many of you feel a deep sense of belonging and fulfillment in the work that you're doing? According to that study, only 15% of workers around the world feel a deep sense of meaning and connection and fulfillment and happiness in their work. That means that 85% of us are people around the world who go to work every day, will go into jobs in which they felt either disconnected, unfulfilled, or didn't feel a deep sense of feeling of meaning in the work that they were doing. And the reason why I believe so much of this is happening is because when we look at these hierarchy of needs, which Maslow pioneered in his work, so many of us have been working to fulfill our basic needs. And through that, we'll be able to fulfill some of our psychological needs, such as belonging and love and so sort of things. And at our best, we're able to achieve a sense of full potential, meaning we feel that we've accomplished some sense of success, that we're doing work that feels creative and meaningful and fulfilling. But what Maslow realized is that this self-actualization actually isn't the highest form. There actually is a higher one. And beyond self-actualization and the pursuit of beauty and creativity and achieving personal potential is this idea of self-transcendence. This idea that we're doing work and we're creating in ways that are beyond what we want and what we see as personally fulfilling, but we're doing work that's in service to others. We're creating things that's helping others. We're creating experiences, products and innovations and breakthroughs that are serving humanities in ways that are far beyond just our soul and personal self-interest. And so this desire to transcend self is really at the heart of what purpose is all about. And so Just like on the journey that I went through with True, today we're going to talk about how you can find your own GPS to your purpose. And we talk about GPS, we use GPS in terms of this acronym: your gifts, your passions, and how they can be of service. So similar to how you use a GPS when you're trying to navigate the way that you're driving or your route to any destination, we're going to talk about how you can use your gifts, your passions, and how you can be of service as a roadmap to find your own fulfillment and meaning in your creativity and the work that you're doing. So first, we're going to start with your gifts. So I want you to think about your superpower. What is the unique gift that you have that your colleagues, your friends all agree on? What are you doing on the best day at work? Think about what your superpowers are for yourself. And then after this session, I want you to go ask five people that you collaborate with, friends, people that know you well, and ask them what they think your gifts are, what they think your superpowers are. I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at what you hear. But I want to tell you about this one gentleman by the name of Saqib Shaikh. Saqib Shaikh is a gentleman on the left. And Satya Nadella is the CEO of Microsoft, and he's on the right. Satya Nadella, when he took over as CEO of Microsoft, one of the first things that he did was he instilled a sense of purpose within Microsoft employees around the world. He wanted everyone within Microsoft to have a feeling that they were contributing to something that not only was contributing to the growth of the business, but also contributing to a societal good. He wanted to create a culture where everyone was feeling as though they were inspiring others and helping and empower others to create and to do things that made a positive impact in their lives in the world. And one of the things that he did was that he invited each of the employees to a hackathon. And Saqib Shaikh, the gentleman on the left, was one of those people who he invited. He invited people across continents, across divisions, and so forth. And he asked them, what are your ideas that you think can make a positive impact, not only in our business, but make a positive impact in the world? And Saqib Shaikh, who was born blind, had an idea and something that was really passionate to him, but also, most importantly, tapped into his gifts for engineering, for creativity, for technological breakthroughs and innovation, and for having a compassion and empathy to understand the needs of others. So I want you to watch this video that talks about Saqib Shaikh and what he created as a part of this hackathon.
I'm Saqib Shaikh. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind. And that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do. But artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
So as you saw, Saqib Shaikh used his gift for innovation, for engineering, for technology, and his imagination to think of disability as an engine for growth. He actually realized through the process that not being able to see was actually a gift that he could use to recognize the needs of billions of people around the world who have no or low sight and create something that made their lives easier. So again, Saqib Shaikh used his gifts to apply his creativity to improve the lives of billions of people around the world. The next letter that we'll focus on is the P, and P is for passion. When you think about passions, think about as a citizen. What is a passion or a cause or an idea that brings you meaningfulness? What gets you leaping out of bed in the morning? What makes you mad? What breaks your heart? What energizes you? Think about those things that you have a deep passion for, because within those passions are some clues as to where your creativity and your gifts can begin to be applied. An example of this is Olympia Aset. So Olympia is a Los Angeles native. When she was growing up, she loved food, but she didn't necessarily love healthy food. As a matter of fact, her family would always joke that she would eat any and everything. But in college, she actually met someone who was a vegan. And she was actually surprised at this man who was probably in his 40s or 50s and how young he looked, how healthy he looked, how vibrant he looked. And she started to really understand the power of food and nutrition in terms of living healthy and having the type of vitality and longevity that so many of the people in her community lacked. And so Olympia, she went back and she started to think about, well, how do I make food, healthy food, more accessible within my family and in my community? And one of the things that she realized is that as she was trying to make this possible, she realized that she was actually living in what many call a food desert, which is a space in which healthy foods such as vegetables and fruits and nutritious foods are not within walking distance of people's residences. She actually realized that the grocery stores that carried the fresh produce were miles away from her home and not convenient at all. And she realized that there was a real sense of injustice in the fact that people who look like her in her community and have access to the same healthy foods and nutritious meals that other people had in other communities in Los Angeles and other parts of the country. So she wanted to do something about it. She realized she was passionate about food. She realized she was passionate about nutrition, passionate about wellness, and passionate about creating an equitable food system so that everyone would have access to what they needed to live a healthy and well-being form of life. And so Olympia shares her story of what she created, driven by that passion. So together, let's watch this video of Olympia Aset and what she created through Supermarket.
I'm Olympia Aset. I'm an LA native, and I'm the founder of Supermarket LA. So a food desert is a place where it's really hard to get fresh food. It's technically defined as anywhere where you're more than 1 mile away from a full-service grocery store. in a place like South Central, there's 1.3 million residents and only 60 grocery stores. Supermarket is a low-cost organic grocery that makes it affordable to eat well in food deserts. We started with less than $100. We really didn't have anything except for a commitment to make sure that people in our community have fresh fruits and vegetables readily available. It really just took determination. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do. I'm actually someone's grocer. People actually rely on me as a source to be able to get their food. And there's nothing I could be more proud of than that, really. I'm a really big believer that the only way we're going to move forward on this planet is if we create institutions where consciousness and spirituality is sort of embedded into the fabric of our society. It's my duty to go as hard as I can to leave a better world to the next generation.
What Olympia teaches us, and this quote I think summarizes it perfectly, it is not necessarily about how to do something. You just have to want to do something. And when Olympia says this, she's talking about the passion. So often we don't get started on things because we don't know all the answers to how we're going to do it. We don't have all the skills. We don't have all of the know-how. But if you start with a point of passion, if you start with a deep hunger to want to do something, and you use that hunger to want to do something to get started on that path, there's so many things that you can learn and pick up and adopt and grow with along the way. So again, passion is a great catalyst to being able to understand where you can apply your gifts and how to get started, even if you don't know all the different things that you'll need to know along the path. And the last letter that we're focused on is the S, which stands for service. How can you use your gifts and your passions to be of service to the world? And the next person I want to introduce you to is a gentleman by the name of Cyril Bush. Cyril was a designer, an amazing creative, who had a company that was focused on creating design and offering creative services to some of the biggest companies across Europe and beyond. But while Cyril was at the height of his career, he met this gentleman by the name of Captain Paul Watson. Captain Paul Watson is a passionate environmentalist who is particularly focused on ocean conservation. And Cyril told us something that Paul Watson told him that changed his life. He said, Captain Paul Watson told me if the oceans die, we die. And Cyril learned that the oceans are actually dying. Now, he wasn't necessarily an environmentalist prior to that, but he did have gifts as a designer and as a creator and as a solution provider to solving big problems. And he did have gifts for bringing people together to do amazing work and to innovate and to create really incredible things. And he did have this passion for leaving the world at a better place than how he found it. And as he learned more about what was happening to our oceans, he actually became much more passionate about what was happening to our oceans, but more particularly the role that plastics were playing in destroying our oceans. And so Cyril decided to do something. He decided to take all of his gifts and his passions and create Parley for the Oceans, which became a collaborative network and a think tank and an innovation company that would help develop products that actually help solve the plastic problem in our oceans. And as he developed this, he realized that if he was going to create these breakthrough innovations, and he had started to figure out ways of turning plastics into products, he actually needed to find partners who could actually help him bring this idea to life at scale. And a partner that he found was Adidas, and a German by the name of Eric Liedtke. And together they imagined what it would look like to create a product that would revolutionize the way athletic apparel was created, while at the same time solving an important problem in our oceans, plastic waste. So let's take a look at this video and see what Cyril, Parley, and Adidas came together to create.
We made an incredible, moldable, indestructible material, but when we dump it, it doesn't go away. Now, one truck of it ends up in our oceans every. It's killing sea life. The fish eat the trash, then we eat the fish. We're feeding ourselves our own garbage. It's now in our bloodstreams. We've got to avoid plastic. We've got to get it out of the ocean and reuse it. Look, what if we took some trash and made a sports and then we made 1 million more from 11 million plastic bottles? What if that was just the start? And what if everyone did that?
In the first year of their partnership, Parley and Adidas sold 1 million pair of shoes. In 2018, they sold 5 million. In 2019, they sold 11 million pairs of shoes. At $200 a pair, that created $2 billion in additional revenue for Adidas, while removing massive amounts of plastic outside of the oceans. As Pierre Diamandis of X Prize said, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. As we begin to think about how we can create things that matter, create things that bring us purpose, bring things that bring us meaning, think about things that could also create impact, and also the ways that ideas partner with the right businesses and partners can create impact at massive scale. What Cyril sparked in Adidas is a desire to not just innovate through the lens of footwear. As Eric Leckie, who's a former CEO of Adidas, said, our efforts won't stop with product. We want to create a global movement to help save the oceans from the threat of plastic waste. Cyril's gifts and passions and finding ways of being of service not only help remove plastic from the oceans, beginning to solve a massive problem, but it also inspires something within a massive global organization to start a global movement of all of their fans and all of their customers and all of the employees to also be allies in helping to solve this important problem of removing plastic. Adidas actually launched new apparel, moving from shoes to also clothing from recycled ocean plastic. So again, thinking of all the different ways that they can take more plastic out of the oceans and put them into apparel and other things that people can only wear and buy, but can also create a more virtuous cycle. Adidas vows to only use recycled plastic by 2024. So it's made a commitment to actually use all of the power that they have in the organization to make all of their products from recycled plastics. Again, getting everything using the full power of the organization. And in their most ambitious endeavor yet, Adidas' radical new shoe is completely circular. So this shoe is made essentially out of trash. Out of the materials of trash, they make this shoe, they sell this shoe, people can buy and wear this shoe. And at the point in which the person is just like, I no longer need or want this shoe, they can bring the shoe back to Adidas, where they will deconstruct the shoe, break it down to the most basic elements, and rebuild the shoe without any additional new materials. So again, by being of service, Cyril has been able to create massive change that Adidas is now a part of, but also brands such as Corona, American Express, and many others. So I want to leave you with some final thoughts. The first is that this moment is a gift. And I really want you to think about this moment as a gift, particularly as we think about our personal lives, but also on a macro level. As many problems as we face right now, as many challenges as we face, is a tremendous gift and an opportunity to lean into the issues and the problems that we face and figure out how to use our unique gifts, our passions, and our ability to be of service in this particular moment. In this particular moment in your life is a gift, to be able to wake up and to spend time learning and growing, and to be able to apply what you've learned today in ways that bring you alive and inspire your creativity and make a positive impact in your lives and the lives of others is a tremendous gift. So be thankful for this moment and make the most of it. Second, your values drive your value. Your values as a person, your values as a creative, ultimately drive your value as a professional, but also as a person in the world. So choose your values wisely and use it to ensure that your value to the world is something that's meaningful and impactful. Start with what you have. So often we get paralyzed by not knowing all the answers. So often we think we don't know enough. We ourselves are not enough. We don't have enough. But who you are and where you are right now is enough to get started. So start with what you have in this moment and begin your journey. Because clarity follows action. And it's only as you go along this path that you become clearer about how you can make a positive impact, but also the other things that you can contribute through your own gifts and your own passions. So remember that clarity follows action. And it's only through action that you become clear on the ways that you can bring your talents and gifts in ways that make impact. Find your allies. No one can do this alone. So find the people that share your passions, find the people that want to create the change that you want to create, and build your allies and move as a collective towards making the impact that you want to make. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. I hope today inspires you to find your why. And I hope it brings you alive in ways that are exciting and inspiring to you and to the people that are around you. I want to thank you again for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to spend this time with you. I want to ask you one last question, which is how will you start today? And that's the question that I want you to answer. In the meantime, continue to realize that purpose is a journey and not a destination. Start your journey and continue the journey. And if you ever have any questions, please go to my website, Bobby Jones on Purpose, where you can learn more, you can stay in touch. And together, let's create a better world. Thank you again.